Welcome back to Around the Clock. We have our first guest of the new year. Welcome to Michael Herbert. Michael, you have known as our assistant town manager, and just last night you were officially appointed our full-time town manager. So yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thanks Yolanda for expressing the confidence in me to be able to do the job. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, the process has been really good in regards to how we moved you into the full-time town manager position. We did all the Board of Selectmen members got to speak to you individually, making sure you wanted it. That was the first step. And then we had the interview process for the public last week. And again, a lot of good positive feedback and a lot of good questions. Okay, so it's now January 2016. You're the full-time town manager. What have you been spending your first 2 weeks on?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a good question. It's what haven't I been spending my time on? Really just kind of getting up to speed on some of the projects that Tony was really handling. And that includes a lot of the development projects, a lot of like the Robert Hill Way, also the Rail Transit District, things of some of these larger development projects that are really important, some of the infrastructure things. That was really Tony's wheelhouse. But we're also fully into the budget season, of course. So doing that, which is, that's what I'm usually doing at this time in the year. But we also have this override discussion happening, so spending some time with that. So it's really just getting caught up. But really the main priority right now is getting staffed up and filling some open positions. And like I might have said before, we're going to see a lot of new faces in Town Hall, but then we're also going to see some familiar faces in new roles. And so that's going to be a real critical task to get done in the next month.
So let's start with positions at Town Hall, changing ones, new ones, and where you're at with them. So first, people have heard about the HR position.
Correct.
There'll now be a posting for an assistant town manager.
Correct.
We also had some other changes. Take us through some of the changes that have happened, new people that have come on board, and what you're looking for those positions moving forward.
Sure. So as you mentioned, we were in the process of interviewing for an HR director, and we had a very strong pool of candidates for that. We've hired an economic development director recently. She started at the beginning of the calendar year. What I've decided to do is decouple the assistant town manager finance director role and just having it an assistant town manager role, and then placing the finance director responsibilities probably on our town accountant, Brittany Iacopone. She's more than capable of doing that. And then that would allow me to find an assistant town manager that could really complement my skill set. I think one of the great things for Tony and I as a team is we had very, very different skill sets, but they were very, very complementary, and we really worked well together. So it's going to be kind of filling somebody who can handle those details, those logistics, things of that nature. But and then we also have a familiar face, Nat Strasberg, as our town planner. He's going to go into the role of Director of Community Development and Health, a very critical role at any time, but certainly at this point in time in Ashland's history. Then we'll be bringing on a new conservation agent soon. All of these positions are critical on a number of levels, just from a process standpoint, but we're a small staff, so it's very critical for us as an organization, and not to be trite, but almost like as a family, if you will.
But also I see, because a person may have a specific role, like finance director, but they're doing a broad range of things. Right. And someone like Nat, who's moved into this new position, but will still be our town planner.
Correct.
So you need people who can do a lot of different things, even though their title might be one thing.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's just the nature of working in a smaller town, is that in lean budget times, and budgets have certainly become leaner as the years have gone forward, we've all had to handle different responsibilities and take on different responsibilities, and that could be, no job is beneath us, if you will. I mean, I would even take receipts and tax collections from people if I need to do that, or if people need help. So it really is, again, a family atmosphere, but everybody's got to be willing to pitch in.
Right. And certainly having you in place already, the transition, the uncertainty of who's going to be at the helm is now taken care of.
Right.
So that we can move on to our next piece of discussion is the override discussions that are happening. Take us through, you've been part of the override study committee, take us through where things are at and what we need to do moving forward with the override discussion.
Sure. So the override study committee spent, several months and many meetings going over different override options, different proposals, what would be included in an override. Their report was released early in the calendar year, and that report recommended a two-tiered override structure, being the first question would be 1.5 million, and it included a number of items. And then the second question would be for an override of 2.4 million, which would include all the items that were in the 1.5 million piece, plus $900,000 in additional critical items. So right now, that process is right at the Board of Selectmen's hands. And so the board is responsible for putting the actual ballot question on the ballot and setting the election date. And so now the board is, deliberating and basically evaluating and analyzing different options. So there's a couple of different...
Our goal as the board is to get a decision and vote taken by our board by our first meeting in February so that the full education to the community can move forward.
Exactly, because that's critical. I think, people need to have the opportunity to talk about it and learn about it and learn about what the pros and cons are to the override and the consequences of it passing and failing, because ultimately it's a value decision for the community. We've done everything we could, I think, from an efficiency standpoint. There's always things that we can improve upon, but they're going to be little things, and we're going to be able to make some incremental approaches. But if we really want to go further as a community and in a more positive direction, we really need to have these items that are on the override. But it's going to be a community decision. Right,
because as you and Tony have worked over the last 2.5 years, you've taken some big changes and you've created some big efficiencies, the healthcare that you've done by updating and improving some of our finance policies. You've improved our bond rating, which has helped in regards to some of our debt and the interest and things we pay there.
Absolutely.
So we've done some of the things to save money. Now we need to look at, as you said, as a community, do we want to have more revenue available to do the things that we think is important?
Absolutely. A lot of work in the last 2 years on creating those efficiencies. And I said this at the interview process. One of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that we've been able to address some of our long-term liabilities, if you will, while at the same time, investing in our current operations as well. So you always want to find a balance, and I think we've certainly achieved that. But if we want to go further, we need to do more.
Okay. Moving forward, what does your next month look like in regards to your new position?
So in the next month, I'm going to be doing a lot of interviews.
Okay.
So again, just staffing up, and really, I just without an assistant, it's kind of double the workload, of course. But that's really, the main thing. And again, it's going to be focusing on having conversations regarding the override, answering questions related to that. Moving forward on the House Street Solar Project, that's before the Planning Board now. And some of the other projects like the Rail Transit District, that will be before the Planning Board as well. So doing that, and I want to do a couple of things that we haven't really talked about. We really want to strengthen our relationships with some of our local colleges and universities. So having conversations with Framingham State, Mass Bay Community College, those I want to start having those conversations as well.
How are you going to, if you feel you need to, sort of make yourself different from Tony? How are you approaching your position as town manager? Or are you going to stay with similar things that he's done?
I think very similar things. I think, I think I've had a lot of influence, I think, on the direction of the town in the last 2.5 years. Tony gave me a lot of responsibility. Tony gave me a lot of room to develop proposals and develop ideas and run with them. Tony was certainly more of an operations type of guy, and I certainly, that's a skill set I'm really looking for in an assistant. I'm really kind of more that big picture fellow, the one who can really kind of clarify and establish, I think, a vision and really kind of hopefully communicate that to the community.
One last specific question as we lead into town meeting. You and Tony had initiated the town managers forums leading up to town meeting. Is that something you'll continue, improve upon, or what do you think?
Absolutely. We'll always look to improve upon it. And for all the differences that Tony and I had, I think one of the things that, again, helped us work together so well was the fact that we had very similar values in terms of transparency, citizen engagement, and furthering good government principles, if you will. So that's certainly something that will be continued. I want that to be ingrained in the community. I want that to just be expected and not necessarily a new thing.
Okay. Before we finish, is there one last thing you'd like to say to the viewers as the new town manager?
Sure. Just be ready to hear me talk a lot about a community vision and a community strategic plan. I think we really need, as a community, to decide where we want to be in 20 years and start working back from there and seeing the action steps that we need to take to get there. And my hope is that I'm here for that whole 20-year period. So.
Well, Mike, thank you for coming on Around the Clock. Congratulations again on the appointment as our full-time town manager, and I look forward to working with you, hopefully for a long time.
Same here. Thanks,
Okay.
Yolanda.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more Around the Clock.